Hello, students. It's me again. Today we're looking at. I kind of made a little bit of a silly title there. It said 90% of rhythms, and maybe this isn't 90%. It might actually be more than 90%. It could be a little bit less, but suffice to say, it's a lot of rhythms. We're gonna kind of find a way to figure out rhythms that maybe we don't understand using this method that I actually had to use myself when I was, I guess I was still 13 years old, and I was given a piece of music. I had no idea how to play it. And what I did was kind of worked through exactly what we're about to do together. Stay tuned. The first concept I want to discuss is a term I only learned much later in my music studies, which is metric modulation, which is a crazy fancy word of just saying rhythms are very related to one another. They're interchangeable in a way as well. So uh, the first step in understanding this is just knowing, for example, one whole note and two half notes is the same amount of stuff. It's the same amount of rhythm, right? So we're accustomed to seeing whole notes in 4/4 time or common time. That's 4 beats is a whole note, or if we have two half notes, it's 2 plus 2. It's also 4 beats. And so, like I said, the first step is recognizing that the note values that we see are all related to this, the same relationship of 2 to 1. So a whole note is two half notes. A half note is two quarter notes. A quarter note is two eighth notes. An eighth note is two 16th notes. A 16th note is two 32nd notes, and a 32nd note is two 64th notes. Those last two, they're not very common. Mostly we get hung up on 16th note rhythms, and our minds explode a little bit. And there's some reason for that. I know I encourage my students to learn the counting method for 16th notes, talking about 1 E and a. And that is a very important concept to know and understand. It's also important for communicating with other musicians. And what we're going to look at here, this metric modulation, that we're going to figure out what that means, is kind of understanding that concept of the 2 to 1. And you don't really have to know very much about how to count eighth notes, how to count 16th notes. We're going to kind of turn it on its head a little bit. And I think you'll find that these rhythms are much more easy to understand when we view it this way. All right, so oftentimes, people ask me, what do 64th notes even sound like? Well, they don't sound anything special, I can tell you that. And they're not necessarily fast either. What? 64th notes are fast? Well, maybe they are, but without any other information, I don't know. So I'm going to throw up on the screen here two pieces of music. Which one looks harder to you? Probably the first one, right? The first one with all the 16th notes and all the crazy looking beams between notes. It's a little bit hard to understand at first. The second one, very simple, made up of note values we're very familiar with. And as I'm chatting with you about this and you're looking at it on the screen, you might realize it's actually the same piece of music, just written two very different ways. So in the next segment, I'm going to show you how we go about looking at something like that first example and how we can figure it out even if we don't know how all the counting techniques, or we've forgotten how we count, this beamed series of notes versus another beamed series of notes. I'm going to simplify this for you. All right, so we're going to look at that first example, and we see it's a whole lot of information. But again, all we have to know is that we mostly see here 16th notes, that's the one with two beams, and we see 8th notes, that's got a single beam, And there's a quarter note there as well. So we're going to turn this all on its head using something called metric modulation. Again, a fancy term. All it really means is that we're changing what kind of notes get a beat, or we're thinking about it differently. So we're going to break this down in terms of 16th notes. So remember we said a whole note is 2 half notes, a half note is 2 quarter notes. Well, you can do that in reverse as well. 2 16th notes is an eighth note. So as we look at the very first 2 notes of this passage, the first note is a 16th note. The next note is an eighth note. And it's a little bit of looks a little confusing there, but that second note is worth 2 16th notes. So the first one is a value, we're going to call it a value of 1. And the second note, that low note, eighth note, is a value of 2. The next note, 16th note, value of 1. So all we're going to do is assign those values. 16th notes are worth 1, 8th notes are worth 2. Now you notice the fourth note is a dotted 8th note. So if you recall the definition of these dotted notes, a dot adds half the value of a note. Now we know that 8th notes we're giving this value of 2, so the dot is going to add half of 2, which is 1 more, it equals 3. Alright, is that all getting clear? So far we have everything worked out except for the final quarter note. We know the first note is 1, the second note is 2, third note is 1, the fourth note is 2 plus 1, or 3. The final note, the quarter note, that one might be a little tough. I'll just give it to you. That's going to be 4 16th notes. 4 16th notes make up a quarter note. And you can do the math and figure that out for yourself as well. So in the next segment, we're going to take this understanding of looking at it by the perspective of 16th notes, where we can figure out this whole rhythm pretty simply. Alright, if you recall what we just discussed, we've got these values that we assign to the notes, looking at them through the lens of the 16th notes. We're going to call those beats. We're going to call it 16th notes are worth 1 beat, 8th notes are worth 2 beats, and the dotted eighth, remember, is 2 plus 1, so it's going to be 3 beats, and then the final note will be 4 beats. And in fact, what we can do, if you'd like, you can actually write these out like you would normally do. So normally quarter notes get a beat. So we could totally rewrite this whole thing. The first note we said is 1, so we could just change it to a quarter note. Why not? The second note is worth 2. We could change that to a half note, and we can, and so on and so forth through the whole thing. But what I want to try here with you, I'm going to clap through this rhythm. Again, using the 16th note as your lens. So you've got 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to encourage you to rewind that if it wasn't quite clear, because as we move on, that'll help if you kind of understand how we went about that. Okay, as we move on here, what we're going to do, naturally we think of things like this rhythm as being fast, and there's some truth in that, although this one's not going to be particularly fast. But what we're going to do is the same exercise. We're going to clap along and count. We're going to do it a hair faster, so about the speed. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, here we go. 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Might be a little hard to do it at that speed, but we're going to try it even faster. So we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3. 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I'm starting to get 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Guess what? That's a quarter note when I'm snapping. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3. 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the rhythm. Right? So if I just tap my foot, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3. 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, you might not be able to do that fast yet, but that is okay. It's more important to understand the rhythm than it is to be able to play it fast. If you can understand it, you can play it fast, and you can play it fast accurately. If you don't understand it, you're just kind of in the guesswork stage. And this is about understanding complicated rhythms like this. Now, in this final segment, I want to share with you a few measures from something I had to learn. This was my first year in marching band in high school, and we were given this piece of music, and I could not figure it out. But I want to share it with you on the screen, and I also want to I'll have this for a download in the description box below for you. I'd like to see if we can work on this one together for our Wednesday appointment. Okay, all right. Yeah, so here is the piece, or at least part of it, that I had to learn. And in fact, I spent hours poring over this small chunk of music because I didn't understand it. And I used exactly the method we just went through. And I practiced it in my head 1,000 times before I even tried it on my instrument. So for Wednesday, folks, if you're signed up, thank you for signing up. If you're not signed up, hey, hit me up and we'll set you up with an appointment time. So for Wednesday students, we're going to see if we can work through this crazy rhythm, okay? Again, all you have to do is this metric modulation. We're just taking very small note values and making them bigger and understandable. You can even rewrite these things if you want, like I said earlier, to make it more understandable. Or you can just change your mindset and say, well, gosh, 16th notes can get one beat. Why not, right? Maybe the beats are just really fast. Okay, metric modulation. This isn't the only way that it's used, but it's a good way to understand, I would say, pretty close to 90% of rhythms. And even if they're not these specific rhythms, even things like triplets and different kinds of tuplets and polyrhythms can be figured out in just this sort of way. All right, I'll see you on Wednesday. Have fun with that rhythm.